It was a hot summer day and I was sitting in a coffee shop trying to beat the heat with an iced latte. That's when I first saw her. Samantha walked in and my heart skipped a beat. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen and I knew I had to meet her. I mustered up the courage to walk over and introduce myself. Samantha smiled and we hit it off immediately. We talked for hours and I knew I had found someone special. Samantha was standing with her long blonde hair and bright blue eyes. She was wearing a simple white sundress that showed off her slender figure. Her smile was infectious and her laugh was like music to my ears. I couldn't believe how lucky I was to have met her. Over the next few weeks, Samantha and I spent all of our time together. We went on long walks, watched movies and talked about everything under the sun. I knew I was falling in love with her and I hope she felt the same way as the night wore on. Samantha and I continued talking, enjoying each other's company. We walked along the beach. The waves lapping at our feet and watched the stars twinkle in the sky. I felt like I had known her my whole life and I couldn't believe how comfortable I felt with her. As the night came to an end, I walked Samantha back to her car. Wes changed numbers and made plans to see each other again. Soon. I couldn't wait to see her again. Over the next few weeks, Samantha and I went on dates exploring the city together and trying new restaurants. We discovered with many common interests from hiking to reading, to watching classical movie. I loved spending time with her and I knew I was falling in love one night as we were stargazing on the beach. I finally gathered the courage to tell her how I felt, but I was confused and lost my confidence. We started dating exclusively and things were going great. We were always laughing, always happy and always in love. I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. As our relationship progressed, Samantha and I even grew closer. We went on adventures together, traveled to new places and shared our deepest thoughts and feelings. We supported each other through difficult times and celebrated our successes together one day while we were on the hike through the mountains. I got down on knee and asked Samantha to marry me. "Dear," streamed down her face and she said yes. And I felt like the luckiest person in the world. We spent the next several months planning our wedding and it was truly a magical day. The sun was shining, the birds were singing and all of our family and friends gathered to celebrate our love. We started dating exclusively and things were going great. We were always laughing, always happy and always in love. Samantha was a talented artist and she spent her days painting in her studio. I loved watching her work and seeing her passion and talent and play. I supported her art and we spent many weekends going to galleries and museums together. We were inseparable and I knew I had found my soulmate. 6 months later, we got married in a small ceremony with just our closest family and friends. Samantha looked stunning in her white dress and I felt like the luckiest man alive. After the wedding, we embarked on our honeymoon on an exotic tropical Iceland. We spent our days exploring the Iceland, launching on the beach and enjoying each other's company. It was pure bliss. The Iceland was breathtakingly beautiful with crystal clear waters, white sandy beaches and lush green. We woke up every evening to the sound of waves crashing against the shore and the sweet scent of tropical flowers. Our days were filled with adventures from snorkeling and swimming with colorful fish to hiking through the jungle and discovering hidden waterfalls. As the sun began to set, we would make our way back to our cozy little banga where we would enjoy a romantic dinner under the stars. We savored the delicious local cuisine and sipped on fruity cocktails while watching the sun set over the horizon. Of a honeymoon was everything we dreamed of and more. We spent 2 blissful weeks on the Iceland, completely disconnected from the side world and lost in each other's love. It was the perfect way to start a new life together as husband and wife. Our first few years of marriage were wonderful. We traveled the world, bought a house and started a family. Samantha was the best wife and mother anyone could ask for. And I felt like I was living in a dream. We would spend our weekends taking them to the park, going on picnics and having a couple of movie nights as time passed. Samantha and I faced our fair share of challenges. We had disagreements, experienced loss and struggled with the everyday stresses of life. But through it all, we remained committed to each other and our love continued to grow. But then things started to change. Samantha became distant and started spending more time away from home. I tried to talk to her about it, but she would just brush it off and say she was busy with work. I became worried that something was wrong, but Samantha would never open up to me. I tried to be patient to give her, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was up. I never thought it would happen to me. I always considered myself a devoted husband, someone who would do anything for his wife. But that all changed. One fateful night when my world came crashing down around me, it was a night that I'll never forget, a night that changed everything. It all started when my wife Samantha came home from a night out with her friends. She was drunk, stumbling around and slurring her words. I was worried, of course, but I didn't think too much of it. She would have had a rough week at work and deserved to let loose a little. It's understandable to want to let loose and have some fun after a tough week at work. But it's important to do so safely and responsibly. Samantha's behavior suggests that she may have been drinking too much and putting herself in a potentially dangerous situation as her husband. It's important to not only be there to support her but also to ensure her safety and well-being. As I helped her to the bed, she started to cry. At first, I thought it was just the alcohol taken. But then she confessed something to me that turned my world upside down. She told me that she had slept with her girlfriend Rod that night, that they both drunk and it just happened. And then the bombshell, she was pregnant with his child. I was stunned. I didn't know what to say or do. It felt like my entire world was collapsing down around me. My mind was racing, trying to process everything. How could this ever happen? How could she betray me like this? I tried to remain calm and listen to her explanation. She told me that she had never cheated on me before and that it was a mistake. She said she loved me and wanted to work things out. But I couldn't bring myself to believe her for the next few days. I was in a daze. I couldn't eat or sleep properly. All I could think about was the betrayal and the impending arrival of another man's child. It was a nightmare and I did not know how to get out of it. I was shocked. I couldn't believe that I was hearing. My heart felt like it was breaking into a million pieces. She told me that she did not mean for any of it to happen, that she still loved me and wanted to make things work. But I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal and hurt. I needed time to process everything and figure out what to do next. As the days and weeks went by, I found myself consumed with anger, jealousy and betrayal. I couldn't look at Samantha without a feeling of wave of disgust wash over me. I couldn't believe that she had done this to me, that she could obey everything we built together for a drunken fling. But the worst thing was yet to come. One day, Samantha came to me and told me that Ra had disappeared. She had no idea where he was or how to contact him, and she needed money for the baby money that I didn't have. I tried to be understood, and I did. But every time I looked at her, all I could see was her with Ra, laughing and kissing and doing God knows what else. I couldn't bear the thought of raising another man's child, especially one that was the product of an affair. And so I told her the truth, that I couldn't find her lover's child, that I could not be a part of this twisted, messed up situation, that I wanted out. The look on her face will haunt me forever. It was a mix of shock, hurt and fear. She couldn't believe what I was saying. Couldn't believe that I was abandoning her and her unborn child. But what choice did I have? As she begged and pleaded with me to reconsider, I stood firm. I couldn't be a part out of this lie any longer. I couldn't pretend that everything was okay when it wasn't. And so I left, I left her and the baby and the life we had built together and left it all behind. Without a second glance. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I knew deep down that it was the right thing. I couldn't live with myself. If I stayed, couldn't look at myself in the mirror knowing that I was raising another man's child. Years went by and I heard nothing from Samantha. I tried to move on with my life but the memory of that night and everything that came after, it always lingered in the back of my mind. But then out of nowhere, she contacted me. She wanted to talk, to apologize, to make things right. I was hesitant at first, but eventually I agreed to meet her. And as we sat across from each other, I realized something: I still loved her despite everything she had done. Despite all the hurt and betrayal and anger, I still loved her. We talked for hours about everything that had happened in the years since we last saw each other. She told me about the struggles of raising a child on her own and how she had tried to find Ra but could never. She told me about the sleepless nights and the constant worry and how she had always thought about me and regretted what had happened between us. I listened, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me still felt hurt and angry. But the other part of me felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to move past everything that had happened and start over. As we talked, Samantha revealed something that shocked me to my core. Ra did not just disappear as he had originally told me. He had died in a car accident. Just a few months after that night, Samantha had been devastated but had never been able to tell me the truth. I didn't know how to feel. On the one hand, I felt a sense of relief knowing that Ro was out of the picture. But on the other hand, I felt guilty for the anger and resentment I had felt towards him all those years. He was gone and I would never be able to confront him about what had happened. As we continued to talk, Samantha asked me the question that had been on my mind since the moment she told me she was pregnant with Rose's child. Would I be willing to be a part of the child's life, to be a father to him? Even though he wasn't biologically mine, I didn't know what to say. On the one hand, I still couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal and hurt that I had felt all those years ago. But on the other hand, I couldn't deny the pull I felt toward this child. He was innocent in all of this and he deserved to have a loving father figure in his life. As we continued to talk, we both began to cry, tears of regret, of sadness, of hope. We knew that we had a long way to go if we were ever going to be able to move past what had happened. But for the first time in a long life, I felt a sense of peace may be true. Maybe there was a way to find happiness again. And so we parted ways with a promise to stay in touch and to work towards healing the wounds of the past. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew that I was willing to try. As I walked away from Samantha, I felt a sense of lightness in my heart for the first time. In a long time, I felt like there was hope for a better tomorrow. And even though I knew that there would be many more difficult conversations and painful moments ahead, I also knew that I was ready to face them. Head on the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But I was ready for the challenge. I had survived the worst and I knew that I could survive whatever came next. Over the next few weeks, Samantha and I began to talk more regularly. We discussed the logistics of my being involved in her son's life and I started to feel more and more like a father figure to him. We started to make plans to meet up in person and I felt a sense of excitement mixed with nervousness. Finally, the day of our meeting arrived. I drove to Samantha's house, my heart pounding with anticipation. As I walked up to the door, I saw her and her son waiting for me on the porch. He was a little shy at first. But as we played together and got to know each other, I felt a sense of joy and contentment that I had not felt in years. As the day went on, I realized that being a father figure to this little boy was one of the most rewarding things I had ever done. I knew that it wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to do whatever it took to make sure that he had a good life. As the months went by, I continued to be involved in his life. I would take him to the park, play with him and read him stories. I started to talk more about our relationship, and although it was complicated, we both knew that it had a deep connection that could not be ignored. One day, Samantha sat me down and told me that she wanted to try to make things work between us. At first, I was hesitant. After all, there was so much history between us and I didn't want to risk ruining the good thing we'd go in. But as we talked more, I realized, but I still had feelings for her too. We started to date again, and although it wasn't always easy, we were both committed to making it work. It's been several years now since that fateful night when Samantha told me about her son. We've had our ups and downs, but we've also built a life together that we are both proud of. Her son is now a teenager and I felt proud to be his father figure. Looking back on everything that happened, I realized that life can be unpredictable and messy, but it's also full of surprises and opportunities for growth. If I had never run into Samantha that day, I would never have had the chance to be a father figure to her son or to rekindle our relation. Life is funny like that. You never know what's around the corner. But if you're willing to take a chance and embrace the unexpected,